What's good people, and welcome back to the channel Crew Boy Productions. This is the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy podcast, episode 64. And hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing very well. Trying something a little bit different here, and I'm going to tell you what I discussed in this episode 64 inside the score and sound of Wakanda Forever, the film. And in this episode, I talked about the relationship between Ludwig Göransson and Ryan Coogler, the composer and the director, how they met, a little bit about their history, and some other projects that Ludwig has worked on outside of Ryan, and also just going from this documentary that is on Disney Plus. I rewatched those 3 episodes and then rewatched the Wakanda Forever movie and discussed some of the different artists he works with, the different instruments that were used in different points of the movie and different scenes of the movie. So just going into that. And then also you will see me looking at my screen a little bit more frequently than I normally would, because I want to get the name of these instruments, the artists, and the particular scenes correct. So you'll see me looking back and forth on my screen as I want to get this information right. So that is why you see me doing that. And then also, if you like what I'm doing here and the previous episodes, if you could subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment. And if those of you that want to listen to the podcast, you can still listen. The podcast is still available to listen. If you follow the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, wherever you want to get your podcast, you are able to do that. Just search for the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy podcast, and you will find this podcast to listen to. And like I said, you can still watch it here on YouTube or on Spotify. Subscribe or follow, would greatly appreciate it. And with all of that out of the way, here is episode number 64. Hope you enjoy. What's good, everyone, and welcome back to the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy podcast, episode 64 here on Crew Boy Productions. My name is BK, and we are going to get right into this episode. As I said before, I'll be looking on my screen a little bit more to get the details of these instruments, of these artists, and these particular scenes as I talk about them from this Wakanda Forever film. And starting off, I want to start off first with the relationship between the director and the composer, and that is Ryan Coogler, the director, and Ludwig Göransson, the composer. They both are very good friends, and they met because they were roommates back at USC when they were in college together. And they bonded over music. And the story goes, it's public information, but Ryan had asked Ludwig, where you're from. Ludwig says, I'm from Sweden. Ryan says something to the effect of there's a particular genre or type of music that he likes from Sweden, or he mentioned. They bonded over that and they started playing together. And long story, you fast forward, they have worked together on many of Ryan's films that he has directed, including his first ever film, Fruitful Station. Ludwig is the composer of the music behind that film. Ludwig also composed the music of Creed 1 and 2, as well as obviously the first 2 Black Panther films. Ludwig is the composer of the music behind that. And Sinners is a current film that is currently out in theaters right now, and Ludwig is the composer of the music for that film, Sinners, as well. Ludwig also has worked with another notable director, and that is Christopher Nolan. Ludwig is the composer of the music behind the 2020 film Tenet. Ludwig also composed music for Christopher Nolan's film the 2023 film Oppenheimer. Ludwig is behind the music behind that. And per IMDb, it appears that Ludwig is going to be composing the music for the upcoming 2026 film The Odyssey. So it looks like he'll be working with Chris again on his 3rd film. So looks like he'll be composing the music for the 2026 Odyssey movie. So looking forward to that, minus any setbacks or delays with that film. And so as we get into this particular film, all this information is coming from the Disney Plus documentary Voices Rising, the music of Wakanda Forever. And this is currently on Disney Plus. Of course, Wakanda Forever was released in 2022. And so this is it was a 3-episode documentary. And so I'm going to cover it from that. And so what I did was I rewatched this documentary, all 3 episodes, and I kind of took notes, paused, rewatched, taking notes of the instruments, the artists that he worked with. And then after rewatching the 3-episode documentary, I then went and rewatched Wakanda Forever, the movie. I rewatched that as well, kind of watching it through a different lens after rewatching and hearing how this come with the music and just through a different set of eyes. So, and still I enjoyed the film as well. So that is kind of my research for this film, and while I'll be looking on my screen to get this information correct. So starting off with this, they traveled to different countries, starting off here in LA, starting off in Los Angeles. Yeah, they started in LA, and then Ryan and Ludwig, they both traveled to Lagos, Nigeria, and they spent 2 weeks there meeting with many different traditional and contemporary artists and musicians. And what they would do is Ludwig would have meetings and sessions with traditional artists during the day, and then he would have meetings and sessions with the more contemporary artists at night, sometimes even up to 4 a.m. And this was for people that he was going to have the music, specifically music for the film, and then also music that would ultimately be on the soundtrack. I am specifically focusing on the people that he had in the film, at least what they showed in this documentary. So starting off in Lagos, Nigeria, he had the first meetings and sessions there. And some of the instruments I want to mention, one of the main instruments you hear in Wakanda Forever, as well as the first Black Panther, are drums. You hear a lot of drums, but it's not just one drum. There are multiple types of drums that you hear in this film and the previous film. And some of those drums include a Sato drum, a Sakara drum, a Aya Bayata drum, a Ayula Bayata drum, a Omila Bata drum, and other instruments like a Kakai horn, and Oji flute, Goji flute, and then some percussion ensembles he worked with, the Jidalo percussion ensemble and the Bolton percussion ensemble, which is, a group that are playing drums, different types of drums. So those are some of the people you hear playing those particular drums in different parts of the film. And so one of the contemporary artists that he worked with, his name is Fireboy. He's a Nigerian artist from Lagos, and as well as working with some vocalists as well. And a particular scene, multiple scenes, when they go to the character of Ayo's home towards the end of the movie, the camera is panning up on the water and then goes into her house and right up to her as she is sitting down. The music is playing there. The name of the song is called Coming Back For You. And it features, like I said, Fireboy and multiple Nigerian vocalists. That song is also playing when Shuri is in the forest, of Wakanda, as she is planting the heart-shaped herb towards the end. It's playing, and then also you see Shuri walking down the hallway of her lab, and she walks up to Riri, and she says, "All set to head home." As they're shaking hands, as they're dapping, the song is playing there. And so he had a session with the artist Fireboy, recording and singing that song in Lagos, which then would ultimately appear, the song would play in those three particular parts of the movie. And so he met with a lot of different people that he had sessions where he would sit in the middle of them as they're playing the different drums in front of him, and then they would get in the studio and record them. And then also the different people he was talking to in Lagos, they would explain the different types of drums. What are they, the meaning behind them, and the cultural reference behind them. Like one of the drums that I mentioned is kind of one would say the mother of the drums. And then the other drums that I mentioned are the children of the main drums. And so he would sit and listen to that. And Ryan would be there as well in some of those meetings, or he would be on the phone. So he had sessions with them, he would play it, and then they would think, well, where can I use this in a movie? Or we haven't had this yet. And he would get the script or get a cut of the movie to be played later. So he sat and had deep and meaningful conversations about the instruments and about the tribes and how it's referenced and true to this Black Panther movie. So that's sort of the things he did in Lagos, Nigeria. Both him and Ryan were there together as well. And then we can now move on to episode 2. In episode 2 of the documentary, Ludwig traveled to Mexico. He went to Mexico City. He also went to the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and he met with artists and musicians there. And this music particularly was for the Talakan portion of the film, in terms of when they're going to the underwater as well as on the sand and the beaches of them before they were primarily underwater. But this particular music that he went to Mexico to record was for this portion, this new city, this new people that were in the Black Panther film. So that's why he traveled to Mexico. And so he met with the traditional artists during the day, and then the singers and rappers at night. And some of the instruments that he got a chance to meet people playing and recording was the tempo zate slit drum. There were also seashells. And one of the particular things that I saw is you can blow into a seashell, and some of the things he used, but also somebody would, they put their hand inside of the seashell and blow it. And then they use that in different points of the movie, like a horn as well. And then also they use the flute of truth. It's very small. And then they use a death whistle. And particularly, I want to talk about that. The death whistle is used, and everybody that has seen the movie has heard that death whistle. So at a particular point in the movie, Namor they're attacking Wakanda. They're there. The water has kind of seeped in, and it's, Okoye says we're under attack. And so Namor comes down, and then there's a fight between Namor and M'Baku. And Namor punches M'Baku straight into the chest, and the camera slows it down so you can see the impact before he flies back. But as Namor is punching M'Baku in his chest, in his armor, the sound that you hear is the death whistle. And so it's kind of a big overarching sound, almost like you're in a temple or something. But that is the sound that you hear as Namor is punching M'Baku through the chest. That sound you hear is a death whistle. That is from an instrument from Mexico. It is somebody playing that, almost like a harmonica, the way they were showing it in the documentary. So that's just one little tidbit that you hear as M'Baku is flown back, but you see the slow motion happen and you hear the sound. It's a death whistle. So that's what you hear there. Another thing is he worked with this particular artist named Fudakesh. She is from Mexico, and they recorded this song, and you hear the song underwater. And the name of the song is called Con La Brisa. And when Shuri is underwater, she has a conversation with Namor, and she says, I would love to see your city. And she tells her that once you go underwater, your bones will crush and this and all of that. And then he says, but we have a suit. Obviously, there's a little comedy there. So she puts, they fast forward, she has a suit on, and they go underwater, and they go kind of down through this, I want to say pipe, but they go down very fast. And then right before they get to the actual place, you see all the fish and the water kind of part ways. And as she goes into the world, you hear the song, you hear her voice play. That is Fudakesh, the Mexican artist, singing that song. And you see right before they go into it, you see the graphic appear in the movie, and it says Talocan, capital city. It shows up briefly in some nice font and some other kind of picture graphics. And so that appears, and then that song starts to play. And so the song, the artist you hear is the Mexican artist Fudakesh that's singing the song Con La Brisa as they're going through, and you're looking through the Talocan city through the eyes of Shuri as she sees the kids. They're doing they're waving to her. They're doing the sign here as they do. And she goes through and sees this whole world. And then obviously Namor takes her to, you see what I'm fighting for. And she says, yeah, that's made of vibranium. And so that song is playing all throughout that particular scene as she is seeing the underwater city for the first time. And also, while Ludwig was in Mexico City, he also then met with these other two many artists, rappers and singers. But I want to focus on Mare Advertica Lurka, and also the artist that I also want to focus on as I try to get that, and another artist as well. But the two artists, one is a rapper and one is a singer. And so what he had them do is he had the singer just kind of blow her breath kind of like against the microphone in the studio as they get to the water scene. And also this is also during the birth scene of Namor when his mother's having birth underwater. And then for the rapper, he had her, initially he had her rapping a song, but he liked the way her voice sounded and the rhythm of her voice. So instead of rapping, Ludwig had the rapper whisper the words into the mic. And so he liked how that sounded, and then he sent it to Ryan, the director. And then what ended up happening was the birth scene underwater, you hear somebody whispering words as the mother is giving birth. And instead of you hearing her screaming, you hear kind of drums playing lightly, and you hear the words being whispered. So those words that are being whispered are by the rapper. And so that's what you hear during that particular birth scene that's underwater. Also, you hear the singer kind of blowing her breath into the mic during that as well. So that's what you hear as that birth scene is going on. So you hear the singer and you hear the rapper. The rapper is Mare Advertica Lurka, and then the singer is Viver Katana, blowing her breath through the mic. Both of them are from Mexico. And then we move to episode 3, and Ludwig traveled to London to record at the famous Abbey Road studios. And he had a recording session there for 10 days. He also had a bunch of the other artists that he met previously from Nigeria and Mexico. And he also had some people flew in from Senegal to come to London to record. He also had a 100-piece orchestra there as well to record for the session. So one person that you hear in both Black Panther movies is the singer. He's from Senegal, Baba Maal. You hear his voice in the first Black Panther film as well as the second one, and you actually see him in the second one. But particularly in the first Black Panther film, back in 2018, as it's opening up, they are in the ship. They've rescued some people, and then Okoye says to T'Challa, "My king, we are home." And as they're going in the river border through the shield, you hear somebody singing, and that voice you hear is Baba Mal. And so he is the one that you hear singing in the first Black Panther film. You also hear his voice again. They brought him back in the second Black Panther film for the funeral scene. And then in the procession, as they're taking the casket down for T'Challa, they're all dressed in white. And there's a brief shot of him as well. You see him also, he has some short dreads. He has the white face paint as well. But he is a main voice. He's an artist from Senegal. And also, Baba Mal wanted Ludwig to come on tour with him. So he toured with him for about 2 weeks as well prior to recording. And then he was able to see the final cut. But I just wanted to mention that he is very prominent in this movie. And then as they're going into Wakanda again in this particular film, in Wakanda Forever, Okoye says, "We are home." And the voice you hear as they're flying through Wakanda is Baba Mal. So very important voice. Is a Senegal singer that is from Senegal. And so that is the voice that you hear in Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And then what else can I say? Like I said, he had a 100-piece orchestra in London that he recorded with. London, Ryan was also on the phone as well with him, going through different ideas. And I think that's it. So he worked with, I didn't say it much, but he worked with a lot of different producers, musical consultants, and rappers. And some of the producers he was able to get in contact with all the artists and get them in the room together to work with, to be on the soundtrack as well as in the movie as well. So like I said, different people he worked with, different instruments he used, and just sitting with them and talking with them and getting the background on all the different instruments and where they're from, some of the tribes they're from, and the reasoning behind and why they play the instruments. And so he was able to take all of that and put it into the movie, along with Ryan, discussions with Ryan, kind of back and forth, and putting them in the right spots and not quite using them in the sense of traditional way, but taking it and using it sometimes for a particular song, sometimes for sounds, for particular moments. So very interesting and kind of a peek behind the scenes of how he got the sound and the music of Wakanda Forever and a little bit of the first Black Panther movie too. So it was interesting to kind of look back at this, to see this from a different set of eyes, and then rewatching the movie, I just kind of hit a little bit differently as I was watching and seeing these particular moments happen. And that is going to be all I have in terms of the breakdown of the score and sound of Wakanda Forever. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know this was long, but if you stay to the end, I really, really appreciate it. And if you like what I just did there and previous things that I do, like the spoiler reviews and the out of the theater reactions, which I'm starting to do, I'm also going to be having future guests, and I'll also be doing some Broadway musicals and shows, reviews. As I am able to see those shows live and in person, I'll be deep diving and discussing those shows as well. So if you can please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, leave a like. And if for those of you that just want to listen, you can still listen to this podcast by following it on Spotify or finding it on Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. You just search for the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy podcast, and you will find this podcast there if you just want to listen. Or you can, like I said, you can still watch it here on the YouTube channel or watch it on Spotify as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I enjoyed looking into this from a different lens. Like and subscribe, follow, listen on the different podcast apps. It is available to listen. Hope you learned something. Hope you took a break. And that's it for today. So until next time, we will talk soon.